I'm deeply saddened and confused. My wife and I, ages 47 and 40, have been married for 16 years with 3 daughters aged 5, 8, and 11. Recently, my wife got a full-time job after being a stay-at-home mom. I supported her completely, managing household tasks and childcare. I even adjusted my work schedule. In January, she became close to male coworkers, which worried me. She wanted some space, and they understood. But she began locking herself in the bathroom with her work phone, chatting with coworkers. I asked her to stop, as we missed her. Then in February, she wasn't home at 7 p.m., and I found her in an unfamiliar location near a hotel. I couldn't believe it, but I had suspicions of an affair. I called her and asked why she was at that specific location at 7 p.m. when we were all waiting for dinner. She seemed surprised that I knew her whereabouts but promised to come home soon. The next day, she left our Apple family sharing, claiming I was too controlling and she wanted more privacy. She reinstalled her iPhone, changed passwords, and mentioned needing cash from our shared bank account for gifts, which now seemed suspicious. At home, she became distant and stopped initiating anything. 3 things happened simultaneously: new friends and a desire for sprees, disconnecting from location sharing plus cash request and cold behavior. That raised my suspicions, but every inquiry was met with denials. She even suggested I needed therapy for being too controlling. My gut feeling persisted, so I began monitoring her more closely. She overlooked our shared iPad, which still had our Apple ID, and location sharing remained active. I followed her movements discreetly. In March, determined to uncover the truth for the sake of my family, I began actively monitoring her location due to suspicions of an affair. Despite her denials, all signs pointed in that direction. I noticed she frequented a specific place during working hours, typically from 3 to 4 p.m. to 5 to 6 p.m., which was a restaurant with attached hotel rooms unrelated to her job. On the decisive day, I asked a friend to observe the place. He witnessed her leaving the hotel area with a man, both getting into separate cars and leaving together. I had all the evidence I needed. When I called her, she initially didn't answer but picked up on the second try. She claimed they were investigating a storage location for work, which the place denied having. Upon her return, I confronted her about the hotel rooms, but she denied everything, even laughing. When I mentioned she'd been there multiple times, she lied again. She showed no remorse, empathy, or willingness to communicate. She threatened divorce if it was indeed an affair, but she refused an honest confession. She retreated to the bedroom, locking the door, and acted as if nothing happened. I remained in the living room, devastated, with our children crying and confused. After putting them to bed, I spent the night there, unable to sleep due to the emotional shock and lack of explanation or confession. The next morning, she went to work without saying a word, still denying everything with a simple, "I have nothing to say." Later that day, I had to break the news to our children that Mommy and Daddy might not be living together anymore. Mommy and Daddy might divorce. At their health story, they cried and were utterly confused, not comprehending how their world could crumble in a single day. They asked what happened, and I explained it to them as best as I could at their level, but they didn't know how to handle it or how to behave with their mom after hearing the news. When she returned from work that day, she remained silent, going about her routine with the children and watching TV as if everything were normal. I couldn't believe her behavior. After 2 more days, she finally started talking. She confessed to feeling emotionally low and chatting with a coworker who also had a family. They had planned and engaged in multiple affairs. She was surprised that I had uncovered the truth so quickly, which wasn't part of their plan. We discussed the future of our marriage. I was uncertain if I could forgive her, but we had 3 young children, and I didn't want to shatter their world. We considered starting fresh and seeking therapy. She also agreed to individual counseling, but mentioned that she had emotions involved which could take time to resolve. She said she loved me, but wasn't in love with me at the moment. She's currently unsure about whether to stay with me for a fresh start or move out completely. Since she ended the affair, she's been on an emotional roller coaster. Some days she seems fine, but other days she's clearly struggling and not over it. In the past couple of days, I've been taking care of the children all day, and I'm the one who initiates conversations with her. She appears distant, avoids me, spends time in another room with the kids, or on her phone or TV. It doesn't seem like she's making an effort to reconcile, show empathy for the emotional damage she caused, or support me with small gestures. I'm uncertain if she genuinely feels remorse, or if she's simply bothered that I discovered her actions. Is she being selfish? Today, she suggested we go somewhere together as a family during the weekend, which confuses me. She appears uncertain, but she hasn't shown genuine emotions or gestures. I'm at a loss about what to do. She cheated multiple times, lied, gaslighted me, and didn't seem to show true remorse. It feels like she's mainly concerned about the potential consequences of her actions and not about me or the emotional damage she's caused. Should I make more efforts, initiate conversations, and believe that a fresh start is possible? Or is the betrayal too deep to fix the marriage? I still love her and am trying to save the relationship for the sake of our children, but I'm utterly confused. I appreciate all your replies and supportive words. Currently, things have become calm, maybe too calm. She goes to work, returns home on time, plays with the kids, but there is minimal interaction with me, and she even informs me of her arrival time. There's been no real or deep communication initiated by her. Perhaps she needs more time, or she's keeping a low profile while searching for an apartment to move out. Time will reveal the truth. I'm not pushing anything because I also need time to process what has happened and what I truly want. And one interesting thing to share is that after she promised to end the affair and attend therapy, I presented my minimum requirements for our future relationship. These included no contact with the affair partner except for business. It's been absolute honesty, transparency, a focus on family and US, immediate therapy in discussing financial matters. Initially, she was upset that I set these boundaries, which seemed to frustrate her. Regarding therapy, I insisted on starting promptly, considering her stated emotional problems as a reason for her infidelity. However, she mentioned going whenever she finds time for it without a concrete timeline. She also refused to consider leaving her job and finding a new one, stating, "I can handle this." I asked her about her standpoint on having sex outside of the marriage now that we've been through this. Her response, "No, I don't think so," devastated me because a solid no would have been expected for serious reconciliation. What are your thoughts on this? Update. I understand some might say that the past doesn't matter and I should leave her now, but I'm deeply sorry about the potential end of our 15-year marriage and I'm doing everything I can to save it. However, I've also become more realistic after reading your comments and advice. I've consulted with a lawyer to explore my options and understand what my life would be like without her. Regarding my emotions, I might still struggle to accept that our world has been shattered by her affair. I'm trying to convince her to consider what's at stake, especially our children and their well-being. Unfortunately, I haven't had much success, and it feels like I'm fighting this battle alone. Starting today, I'll apply the soft 180 approach to emotionally disconnect a bit and regain control of my life. Let me share a dialogue that sheds light on her mindset. I asked her if she felt any moral concerns about the fact that the affair partner has a family with a wife and young kids, just like us. In response, she angrily left the room and said, "I will continue this conversation if you please stop offending me." I told her I didn't intend to offend her, but simply wanted to understand her perspective on the moral aspect. She remained silent, looking away, and the entire conversation felt one-sided, much like my efforts to convince her to save the marriage. It seems like the affair fog has completely altered her way of thinking and her ability to differentiate right from wrong. Or perhaps she simply doesn't care, believing she's entitled to anything and acting selfishly. If the affair partner is okay with cheating on his family, maybe she's morally okay with it too. This realization has been problematic and shocking for me. I've come to understand that her current moral standards are unacceptable to me. At the end of our conversation, I made it clear that I won't share my wife with anyone else and that she needs to make a choice. I also suggested she leave her job if she's truly committed to reconciliation. She remained silent throughout, uttering only a few sentences in our 20-minute conversation. Update. Firstly, I want to express my gratitude for all your thoughts and advice, which have truly helped me navigate these difficult and emotionally taxing times. Unfortunately, I'm quite new to dealing with this situation and have made numerous mistakes because I was naive regarding my W's and didn't fully grasp the nature of cheaters and cheating. I realized that I have a significant disadvantage in this battle. I'm naturally honest, play by the rules, possess a what you see is what you get attitude, and most importantly, I have empathy even for my WS. Yes, that's true. I also live by my moral standards, emphasizing transparency and honesty. On the other hand, I feel my W's is not necessarily playing by the rules. Playing by the rules at the moment, they can see in her eyes that she isn't telling the whole truth, selectively sharing or distorting information to fit her interests and current situation. Interestingly, the only time she seems to pay attention is when we discuss matters that affect her directly, such as financial issues. But when it concerns me, she appears indifferent. This lack of empathy and her attitude prevent us from having open communication, which is crucial for any reconciliation. Here's the current situation. I can sense melancholy and sadness in her, and I'm certain it's not because of me, but likely related to the affair and its loss. This tears me apart. She still shows no emotions toward me, avoids physical contact, and withdraws when I try to approach her. But over the weekend, I mentioned that I might seek help from a trauma expert to process all of this. Her response was a blunt do so. No follow-up questions, no comfort, no offers to help me ease my pain, just a casual do so. She immediately went back to typing on her laptop, as if I'd said I was going to buy milk from the store. Oh, no more questions, just an attitude of yeah, go ahead. I support you? What else do you expect from me? This response, or lack thereof, speaks volumes about her empathy and compassion, and it hurts me deeply. Though I feel utterly alone in this, with her showing no signs of caring or providing any assistance. She doesn't even pretend to express remorse or empathy. It continues as she comes home on time, focuses on the kids, appears sad, and easily gets annoyed before going to bed. She mentioned needing time to process her emotions and figure out what she wants. Evident that she still misses the affair and the affair partner, even though she claimed to have ended it. I noticed she sleeps with her work phone next to her. This situation raises the possibility that one day she might pack her things and leave. Should I just sit and wait for her decision, knowing that the affair could continue, perhaps more discreetly chosen than this time? Update. I've started implementing the 180 method. Since we still share the same household with our 3 children, I'm cautious not to cause them any harm with my changed behavior. I've reduced communication with her on topics related to the kids and household matters, focusing more on myself. I also asked her to take on 50 of the childcare responsibilities going forward. This means she needs to either come home earlier or hire a babysitter. You were absolutely right about reasoning with my WS. Nothing seems to have any effect except facing the consequences of her actions. I've separated our finances. She mentioned that a 50-50 split wouldn't work for her due to her low salary and her desire to save money. She proposed dividing expenses based on the difference in our salaries, with her covering 30 and me paying 70 I'm struggling to see the fairness in this arrangement. Regarding informing the affair partner's spouse, I didn't bring up the topic, but she did because she believes I know everything and was concerned about my actions. She mentioned discussing it with her affair partner shortly after the discovery and advised against it, citing potential retaliation. She wasn't specific about the nature of this retaliation, whether it might harm the children, me, her, or anyone else. I asked her to clarify, and she stormed off without a word. She declared that regardless of what happens, she will prioritize the children above all else. This shocked me because it implies that she wouldn't support me, even if someone vandalized our property or harmed me in retaliation. It was a wake-up moment for me. I've decided to pursue a divorce. I'll update. It seems like a twist of fate. My wife has been accused of corruption at her job recently. She was quite upset this morning, and I couldn't help but ask what had happened. Here's the condensed version of the story. She deals with property visits and tenant communication. A tenant requested more parking spaces and offered to pay a success fee if she could make it happen. It's in her response, sent via email, she mentioned that such matters should be directed to the sales department. A somewhat silly mistake, but the issue is that the HR department monitors all employee emails to clients. They spotted this reply and alerted her boss, suggesting that she should have declined any form of success fees because it essentially implies directing them to another department for bribery. So HR reached out to her boss, not her directly. I believe this isn't good news for her. Her boss mentioned that he's trying to handle the situation, but it's likely that the news will also reach the director. At this point, nobody knows what the outcome will be. Look at sexually questioned season. In large companies, even the slightest hint of corruption can have serious consequences for the accused employee. As Carrie G, even if she doesn't lose her job over this, it's probable that her record will be marked with a new note. I can't help but think about how I could potentially use this situation to my advantage in my current circumstances. Is this a gift from above? Perhaps sending a letter to HR detailing her other activities with a coworker during business days could be a valuable addition to her profile now. I'm considering using this as a subtle reminder when discussing the terms of divorce with her. What are your thoughts? Update. I'll do my best to answer your questions. Affair partner. I don't have complete information about the app. I know he works for the same company because at the motel, he got into a company car from the same organization my wife works for. And according to my wife's claim, he's in a different department. That's all I know, to be honest. Hiring a private investigator could provide more details, but the question is whether it's worth the time and effort. I understand that morally it would be the right step to inform the other party's spouse. However, I'm not sure if I want to save my marriage at this point. Recent HR issues. I might be overthinking this, but there's a strange coincidence in the sequence of events. The affair was exposed. The aide became afraid of the affair being revealed. My wife received HR calls regarding her suspicious activities that could lead to her termination. Could it be that my wife is seen as a threat and needs to be removed quickly, or is this just a conspiracy theory? Or is it another fabrication by a liar? Does she want me to feel empathy for her? That's not happening. Personality. I've considered the possibility that my wife may have hidden narcissistic or sociopathic traits. It's difficult to put into words. Her father is also perceived to have narcissistic sociopathic tendencies, but his past actions showed a lack of remorse, no emotions, a constant focus on his interests, self-entitlement, and aggression. She's displaying similar traits. Now, displaying similar traits, selfishness, frequent lies to me, deception, gaslighting, a sense of entitlement to cheat, zero empathy or remorse after the affair was exposed, and a focus solely on the potential negative consequences for herself. She can't handle any criticism without going cold and silent. I began feeling her low level of empathy many years ago, and I always had to tread carefully when talking to her. But I couldn't quite understand it because I still saw her as the beautiful mother of my children. But something has changed. Has the mask finally fallen? Why now? By the way, I've decided to seek help from a trauma expert and will have 2 sessions weekly starting next week. In acts even now, I struggle to sleep, think clearly, eat properly, and deal with constant emotional stress. It has improved a bit, but sometimes I have severe setbacks. I realized I needed specialized help. When I told my wife about my potential PTSD and emotional trauma, and that I needed to see an expert, she showed no emotion or empathy. I'm pretty sure she viewed this as a logistical issue, because it means she has to come home earlier from work twice a week to pick up the kids from school and daycare, and that inconveniences her workplace. She never mentioned hiring a babysitter. It seems like to her my serious trauma caused by her actions is just a logistical problem. Now she's left the house to visit her brother for Easter. She told me, "You can come if you want," but I didn't see it as a genuine invitation. At this point, I would have been more comfortable with something like, "I'd like you to come." She got furious and couldn't say that. Instead, she said, "I'd rather be alone now." And she left with 2 children because one of my daughters refused to leave her daddy alone and stayed with me instead. Update: what do I want? I desire a healthy relationship where I feel loved, respected, and deeply connected. Sadly, my marriage is currently far from this ideal state. In the past weeks, I initially held on to the hope that with patience and open communication, we could return to a sense of normalcy and embark on the path of reconciliation. However, my wife's behavior since the D-Day has been disheartening. It was shocking to see that even after the painful things she put us through, she displayed no remorse, emotions, or empathy towards me. Instead, she became distant, emotionally numb, and saddened. Strikingly, she keeps mentioning her hesitation about continuing or not. As someone pointed out, she's made a drastic 180-degree turn, mentally distancing herself from the marriage. Essence, she seems to no longer care about me. I don't know if all these dynamics will change in the future. Maybe I'm not patient enough. Yet, to be honest, something inside me has died. I don't believe I can live with a person who has betrayed me so profoundly, repeatedly lied to me, and even laughed at my suffering. It wasn't a simple mistake. It appears to be part of her personality. You cannot subject your significant other to such humiliation. Initially, I resisted admitting this painful truth, but I've come to accept that she is capable of such betrayal, and she has indeed betrayed me. I cannot find it within me to forgive this, nor do I want to continue living like this. Considering all these factors, today I've reached the difficult decision to pursue a divorce. This is an incredibly tough choice for me because I hope to salvage my marriage and maintain a happy family life. I can only hope that my children will one day understand and forgive me for making this decision, recognizing that it was a step toward preserving my own mental well-being when they look back in time. These truly challenging times for me. Update during the entire Easter period, which lasted 4 days. I had the opportunity to reflect on this entire ordeal. My stance remains unaltered. I cannot coexist with someone who not only emotionally and physically betrayed me, but also engaged in multiple affairs and motels while constantly deceiving both me and our children. Forgiveness eludes me. It may be my vulnerability, but I refuse to endure this humiliation and disrespect within a relationship. I couldn't care less if she returns home and presents herself as the perfect mother figure to the children. It's all a facade, a deception. She led a double life and reveled in it until her secret was exposed. I realize that this affair has become a definitive deal-breaker for me, and the absence of meaningful communication, remorse, empathy, or any semblance of humanity on her part following its protectorate points to one stark revelation. She continues to harbor a sense of entitlement. Reconciliation is now off the table, and her actions have caused irreparable damage to our marriage. Attempting to communicate with her is utterly futile. She refuses to provide direct answers and is visibly irritated by the mere notion that she must communicate with me when she simply wants to unwind. To top it off, she declared, "I don't have any questions regarding you." How charming. By the way, she seems to be mourning the loss of her affair and sitting on the couch in a state of collapse, browsing Netflix titles without making a selection for 30 minutes. I cannot muster any empathy for her loss, nor do I care anymore. I've also decided to take action and demonstrate the unpleasant consequences she must face, both in terms of time and money. Firstly, starting this week, I'm reducing the amount of time I'm available to help with childcare. I informed her that she needs to look after the children for at least 2 days during the work week. This means she'll have to leave work early and return home in the early afternoon to pick up the children. Zik Notmore enjoying 5 days of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. with her job and adventures while I cook and babysit. That's over. She was furious, but I informed her that I have a therapy program for trauma that I must attend for months, hence the change. Secondly, regarding finances, fortunately, apart from our house, we also own a nice apartment. The last week, I informed the tenants to vacate the apartment and find another place to live. So in a very short time, she may have the option to move there. I believe she might choose this option, especially since I've made it clear that she must contribute 50 towards all shared expenses, including loan payments, utilities, food, household items, and anything related to the children. She immediately claimed she cannot afford these expenses, so I suggested that moving out and bracing her newfound independence might be the best course of action. However, even if she does move out, there will still be some expenses she'll have to cover, at least 50s, such as child-related costs and loan payments, insurance fees for shared properties. If she refuses to contribute, I've decided to meticulously document everything for future reference. I have made up my mind to proceed with the divorce. I don't intend to win her back or seek revenge. My decision in this matter is final. Nevertheless, until we sign agreements related to assets and custody, we'll have to continue living together, sharing responsibilities and paying bills. After these contracts are finalized, we can officially initiate the divorce process, which might take 4 to 5 months. Thus far, since D-Day, she has contributed nothing. I've covered all the expenses and cared for the children. I don't wish to force her out of anything. I may suggest she move to our other apartment if she cannot afford to live here. If she refuses to move, I might consider relocating. What I've told her is that she must pay her fair share, 50 of our shared bills, from this point forward, and be responsible for the children at least 2 days out of the 5 during the week. These actions aren't driven by revenge, but rather by the consequences and the conclusion of an era during which I supported her fully, only to receive cheating, betrayal, and lies in return.